Hello, hello. Aderson Oliveira here for the DNN store. That's our second try, but we're gonna get there, Chad. I have here with me Chad Nash, the owner of Data Springs Inc. They are in business since 2004, and they have many different modules out there, and very famous modules, including dynamic forms, dynamic registration, but most important fact about Chad and Data Springs is their big mascot called Annie. Chad, how is Annie doing these days?
Annie's doing great. I mean, her full name is actually Princess Anastasia Beaverhausen, but she's actually retired. She left the Springs at the end of last year, and she's moved on to a farm in Northern California, and she spends her days probably not thinking about dynamic forms and dynamic registration. She's probably thinking about a few other things, but she is doing well, and I get updates from her. I think it was just time for her to move on, I think.
You know, I mean, when I was thinking about Annie, I thought, maybe she had turned into bacon, but I said, no, I'm gonna ask anyway.
Yeah, no, she's for Data Springs, she was always really focused on bringing home the bacon for us, but she really didn't really want to go that route at this time.
Very good, very good. Chad, I don't know if you recall, but we had done an interview together about 4 to 5 years ago. Do you recall that?
Yeah, I do recall that. Yep.
Yeah, I went through that interview just to get a recap of what we were talking about 5 years ago. But before we get to that, let me ask some basic questions here. Where are you located, and where is Data Springs located?
I am traveling the world right now while I've been working. So I am located currently in Sydney, but I'll be throughout a lot of different parts in Australia over the next few months. And I've been, one of the other great things too about this type of travel is because, you can work the whole time. You can, when you have staff like we have, you can be more on top of time, basically. So basically, everybody who's not covered support-wise or email-wise by the end of day for Ryan and David and everybody back at Data Springs, I now cover on this shift, and it's quite nice. So, but corporate headquarters would still be right there in San Diego with a small office, and Ryan is just an hour up north. So it's it's working out pretty good for us.
So talk a little bit about the team there. You mentioned Ryan, yourself. Do you have anybody else helping and support? Anything else like that?
Yeah. We have a number of other people that are more, I would say, contractors but really full-time contractors. And they're usually handling more implementation. They'll handle support, but we usually still have support with Ryan and myself or David. And Kaval is our number one .NET Nuke module developer. So we have a small team, but it's quite nice. Ryan has been with us for many years now, so I feel quite bad now that I just got the anniversary wrong, but I think it's 5 years now, so that's really quite amazing. And we'll be bringing Ryan actually, we're going to be bringing him on board as vice president and a percentage of the company as we grow. So it's really a good thing, and kind of trying to integrate more of my staff with the management of where we're going.
Got it. And so that's a great segue to my next point here. Those days, what's your focus? I mean, what you guys are doing there? Is that just DNN? Is that, are there more other types of projects, other types of products? Because back then, just about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, you guys were doing some things on mobile. So what's the state of the affairs now?
I would say that we're definitely more on the implementation side and custom projects, much more than we were 5 years ago. So I would say 5 years ago we were probably at 70% for software revenue and and 30% for custom work and projects. And now those numbers are reversed, but that's just kind of reflective of the market and different projects that are out there and so forth. So we have started and will release some additional, Dynamic Form 6.0 is coming out, which is great, and it's been in development now for quite some time. It has a whole different, new UI, so that's great as far as DNN is concerned. Outside of DNN, we have 3 of our modules in the collection that will be released this month as WordPress plugins. That's been ongoing development from us over the last 4 or 5 months. And then a lot of our projects and pieces and work primarily has been in kind of a migration stage for customers. So, back in the day, 5 years ago, we would do, maybe we were kind of an integrator between mobile apps into DNN as a CMS. And now we find ourselves constantly being involved in projects that are kind of that middle layer between something, whether it's mobile and DNN as a CMS, or maybe it's conversion from DNN into WordPress for users and content and migration. Maybe it's migration between other CRM systems and then integrate into a CMS. So we seem to be really good at these types of projects that are conversion based, because we've been adding and deleting users with our modules, interactive user import or dynamic registration. So we're quite familiar with those types of working with that type of data. And then when it comes to content and other things, we have something called dynamic migration that we can't really release as an app yet, but basically the point of this is to have for any developers out there, is to have a resource when you're running through on a conversion for a site.
Got it. Okay, so again, we talk a little bit about the company, a little bit about what you guys are planning next, but let's talk for a second here about the past. I mean, I see a theme on your site, which is the heroes, the superheroes on your site. So let's talk about the secret origins here a little bit. How did you get started on DNN? Again, I don't want to dig too deep, but just enough for people to get a sense of where you came from. When did you get first in touch with DNN, and how was that initial experience there back then?
It was great. It was great because I was following a hobby and I was following a passion that was, I definitely was, I was coming out of college. I had another corporate job. I wanted to start my own website and just start advertising to do some very basic web development or software development. And with that, I kind of got involved in DNN. I downloaded the same iBuySpy portal from back in the day when ASP.NET came out, and from there, I think back all the way to DNN 2, and especially involved in 3 and 4. And so I started basically building it for my own site. And then I thought, oh, you know what? Let me build a couple components for this, because I was just kind of filling my own gap. And then after a while, with the snow covered, it was like I thought, okay, well, let's start putting these modules up for sale, see if they have any traction. And it was pretty consistent growth from that month on for quite a while.
Got it. So let's talk about the dynamic set there. You have a few, quite a nice set there of modules. And more specifically, let's talk about the dynamic forms. Again, not technically, but from a high level point of view, where the idea came from for that module, for a module to build forms, where that idea came from?
I think it came down to one of those things that was filling our own need. I think we wanted users to register and be part of our site, so we had dynamic registration, and then we wanted to allow users to be able to pay us for any type of work we would do for them, so we wanted a payment form. We wanted users to contact us, and we wanted to be able to customize the contact form, because you just get all excited when you're programming and want to start doing some fun stuff. And so I think that back then it just was a small piece, and thought, okay, you know what, let's build this piece out and then go from there, and then it gets built up. There's always times a developer wants to go back and say, can we go back to step one because we want to know why it's programmed this way. I think that's with any software. You think you don't really realize all the time where the growth in different projects will go, and so but I've been very happy with the evolution of that module.
So, in general, is that the trend that you see, at least for your organization, of coming up with new modules, or of new, not only modules, but solutions in general? They come from either a personal need or something that you are working for an existing client that you may just want to expand that to allow more people to use? Is that the common process that you guys go through?
Yeah, that's kind of definitely probably some good business 101, right? If you're trying to find a niche, so often, even for my products, even for our products now, it's important, in my view, to not go at necessarily the dollar amount and the exact number of sales sometimes, but what's the passion around it? Do you think it's going to be of high value to the clients, and do you think that you can stand behind it and be proud of what it is? And it's kind of fun, because if it wasn't fun, or if it wasn't, I wouldn't have started. That's why it was started as a hobby. So I think you can kind of look back to those and see if your motives and desires are in the right place, I think, because it's kind of one of these, it's the same old stuff everybody always says, right? Like, find a job you love, do your passion, all of that same stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, let me tell you something. And I don't see that too much in the DNN ecosystem yet or anymore. I have never seen that too much, but I have to tell you, your marketing initiatives are very innovative from where I stand from where I stand. I mean, I see things like this any little pig that you come up with, and you hold this pig. I mean, I have the video here. You hold this pig, this huge pig, and again, that's one thing. And then you have this superhero themed website. And just last week I saw the email that you sent out about the dress, the dress color. And again, you made an angle for your own stuff there, for your own modules there. And even in your site, I mean, I see you collecting emails from that pop-up. Those are, I mean, though I would say those are marketing 101, but we don't see too many people using those kinds of tactics, I would say, strategies. So is that from you? Where does those things come from?
Very different places. Originally, I think, even for the Data Springs and the name of Data Springs, my brother was in marketing, and my brother, because I was the tech geek, and my brother would always kind of help with some things, like, because I wanted to name my Data Springs, I wanted to name it Tycoon Software, and my brother, and I would just like get started on stuff and start making the logo and start getting the site, and my brother was very particular back then, and he was like, Chad, please do not name your company that. He's like, just chill out, calm down, we'll start looking at websites. So he really helped me with some of the initial ideas, especially opt-in email as a module too, for some of the marketing efforts. And then I would say over the years, I just got better with some of that. I mean, to be honest, I really came to the conclusion that, well, a couple conclusions. I came to one conclusion, that people just don't like boring shit. So it's just like, you can't, and people don't want to be gimmicked into something, right? I mean, like, I'm more likely to delete an email that's coming up because it's the day after Thanksgiving, or a very specific, just like, I don't think consumers anymore want to feel sold, they want to be part of the experience, and I don't think that the consumers and our customers are buying our products. I think they're buying our story and our people and the people behind the products and the knowledge, and ultimately the support is what they're buying. They're buying the knowledge that there'll be somebody to talk to than just the product itself. And I learned that with Princess Anastasia Beaverhausen, right? I learned that people would be more interested in those videos, and I still got the message out, so it's just like, I think in that video I said, oh, Annie heard us talking about going to the market, and she got really, really concerned, so it's just adding a slight bit of human and humor, and remembering that we're human in a way, and that we want to have a good story. I mean, I used to like all the little build-up that you can do with that. Is so fun, because you're just like, basically, it's like you're a kid, so you can start having fun because you're already having a real pig in your hands, so you might as well start having fun with it. So for me, like at conferences, I would start, Annie has her own Facebook page, and she has quite a few fans, and so I would start checking in and tagging throughout the conference on my flights, so people would really, so I had real people really, really wondering and really, really thinking that Annie was there at the conference. I even thought one day, I thought maybe I should have brought it, but it's just having fun, I think.
Okay, so we have discussed a little bit about the marketing innovations that I think that you bring a lot of interesting spins to that. But let's talk a little bit now about the processes that you go through, that your team goes through to support and again, because this is an interview for the DNN store, so that's where I'll be focused a little bit more, which is on the support side, on the module side, that is part of your business on that marketplace. So which process do you use to support clients? Is that do you have a forum? Do you do that from the DNN store directly? What's the preferred way of working with you and your modules?
The most preferred way is always through the DNN store's help desk system. I think for a number of reasons, you get tracking there. We're quite familiar with things that come up on a common basis, and patches and so forth, easy access. Even if a client was working with us directly and they were buying our modules through maybe a project we were doing with them and they're paying us separately, we still have them go through the DNN store to make the purchase, or so give them a discount and have them make the purchase there, just because it's quite important to have access to upgrade discounts and to have access and utilize the store for what the store is good for. The store is great for that kind of stuff. I decided a long time ago that I had no interest in the small 25%, and if it involved me having to have my own review system, my own FAQ system, my own patches, my own upgrade discounts, all of that stuff. So I really like to take advantage of the store's perks, and the help desk there is the best, because then you at least have some sort of accountability for when we received it, and sometimes cases take a little while, and sometimes it's a weird issue, and it's important to be able to go back and not just have an email chain. At the same time, we do offer support through DNN support at datasprings.com, and if you go through our website and contact us, and you can enter your support details, and we do that. At the same time, it's not the preferred route. We just learned that customers are still going to email them, and I've learned to not fight the flow all the time. I mean, you know what it's like when you have a larger company out there or whatever, and they start imposing this every sort of rule around how you're supposed to do it, and all of I feel like red tape. When at the end of the day, it's like quite a few of these can just be answered over an email, So I just always tell clients that it's not going to always have a more guaranteed or faster response, because we monitor help desk tickets first.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. So again, DNN store is the preferred communication channel with whoever buy your module. So on that note, now let's talk a little bit about the process that you guys go through to do your own releases. I mean, how do you decide what goes into a release and what doesn't go? I mean, what is the process you guys use for that aspect of the business?
Well, I would certainly like to have a larger scaled version of how this should work, but the truth is that it's different every time, you know, because sometimes um, we like to, sometimes we're working with a lot of clients on projects, and we certainly will look at enhancements that are paid enhancements or necessary enhancements that would fit into the um, larger version or the module as a whole. We're constantly looking for that type of work. So if somebody mentions to us a payment gateway they want into the module, or they mention to us a feature that they have to have, that they're willing to pay for, and then we say to them, hey, this would be a really good win-win-win. It's good for you, it's good for me, it's good for all of our other customers. We'll even discount the price some on those enhancements because we just know that ultimately these guys are kind of pushing forward with some enhancements. So that's the number one thing, because it also, I don't know, good or bad, it also is a good distinguishing factor when other clients, you can't always be pushed over by just what a few clients want, you know, because it'll always be the squeaky wheel, or, you know, it's always kind of this, every customer you talk to, when they're working on their specific project, will be shocked that your module doesn't currently have a feature that they need. And they will say, how is it that you don't have this is something everyone would want? You know, and as a developer, back in the days of the original versions, you'd go, oh my gosh, well, I guess yeah, you're right, how could we have missed this? And then you end up looking back and saying, no one else has ever used that feature, you know? So it's like, so you get more particular in knowing, and you start hearing a few people talk about features they want. Customers tend to make it pretty clear if you ask for feedback. We try to find the most win-wins, and that's the first thing to do. The next thing we do is we log everything in an on-demand Jira system for tracking all of the bugs. And sometimes, and we have iPhone and iPad apps where we manage some of those. A lot of times, those are great just because you think you have time to fix certain bugs in next patches or whatever, but however, you know, some stuff takes a little time to get through the chain, you know. You're putting out fires some days, other days you're working on new enhancements, and I like to use the gyro system because it's probably the best I've found for really keeping and not losing that information. It's more important to log it than to force your deadlines and checklists from it, I guess.
Got it. Okay. Okay, so again, you're talking about features and, you know, adding stuff that a client wants that you see that could benefit, you know, more clients of that module. Your modules in general, they have a lot of flexibility, a lot of options. How do you balance between, you know, I need flexibility and this is becoming too complex here? So how do you find a balance there between complexity and flexibility? That's my question. You know?
I guess I would say that you learn where the perks are in your module, and you find the greatest strengths of them, and you focus on those pieces, and you don't always try to build a complete one-stop shop, for me at least. That, you know, if you have a module, and there's a few others out there that are one-stop shop, you know, if your directory can be a registration, can be a forms, can be a shopping cart, can be a reporting module, that's a very, very, very powerful module, but what you've built is something that isn't going to be as much of a niche to an individualized module instance, which means there's probably more development knowledge and more skill that's necessary to implement it, and more time consuming to implement it. At the same time, you have to be willing at times in these modules to set aside all the feedback from customers saying what yours can't do that others can, you know, because yeah, there's certain features that our modules can't do because there's other components and other things that, you know, it works differently with our modules. So, but at the same time, we like to make it easier and have it a little bit more like one module. You know, dynamic forms is a pretty complex module, and so is dynamic registration and other modules. And what you won't find is you install it, and now all of a sudden you've got 30 freaking modules in your list, and now what are you going to do? You got to go through and figure out how they connect together. So with all of our modules outside of opt-in email, with all of our modules outside of that module, we've been able to really maintain a single control panel within one module instance, and that's been a really big help, I think, for customers too.
That answers the question. Okay, so so if I ask you, who's the target audience of your modules? I mean, do you have any particular, I don't know, insights into who's your audience?
You know, we have a lot of international clients. I think part of that's because I've built a nice international group of vendors and friends that I've worked with over the years. I would say our modules are probably less developer. You know, it's kind of in the middle between like an Xmod or an Open Web Studio, and then between that and maybe other modules that are out there that, you know, ours is kind of in the middle, like, whereas it's not everything in the kitchen sink. It's a little bit, you know, you have to buy a module for forms, and that's going to be separate than the module for registration, and so it's kind of at the same time, what you find is that they are dynamic, and so you'll very oftentimes find that you need dynamic forms, and then maybe you can integrate that into SmithCard, or maybe you can integrate that into an Open Web Studio, and maybe you just use the forms for the payment. You know, maybe you just use the forms for PayPal subscription. But basically, I like to see our modules and the customers using them as a integrated part of their solution, and not necessarily the solution, because that means that they can play well with others in the sandbox.
Okay, so I was checking just the other day on the Evoq Preferred list of modules, and I don't see yours there. I mean, is that just because you didn't get a chance yet to go through their, you know, validation? What's the deal there?
Yeah, I'm sure some of that is, you know, part of the thing is that we, over the years, there's been many different forms of validation and verification, right? So I've been through that process when before DNN acquired SnowCover, and they had their own store, and you had all the approval, and you had all of the SQL scripts, and you know, you went through their validation, and you got your report back. And you know, I've been through all of that with our modules. We've been through that before with the DNN store, with within the I think it was Azure compatibility. We've been through, and they would like post an Azure compatibility logo if you were compatible. And so I love that now there's a new Evoq compatibility, and I know Nathan Rover with the store has really spent a lot of time on the validator and all of the pieces. I know it's like, that's fascinating. That piece really is great, and I think it's great. I think we just haven't, we certainly haven't had any customers come to us and say, we're not buying because you're not on this preferred list. And we do support our customers on Evoq and Azure, and we do have them ask us, and we have versions or builds that we certainly know because we've worked with clients, and it's certainly something that we will do. I think at the current time, I'm more interested in supporting our clients that need the help than having the label to put on the site.
Okay, Okay, that answers. I just want to, I guess that, I don't know if it's clarify or explain, but I think there's an important aspect to the Evoq Preferred, which is beyond the technical, which is beyond how things work behind the scenes, which is really to validate, you as a vendor, that you will be also, they know you are a long-lasting vendor that will not be here today, gone tomorrow. So again, I think that there's also this side of the validation that is valid. Anyway, my take. That's it. Um, okay, about products. Still about products. And you may not have that in mind, and I should have asked you beforehand, but I'm gonna do that on the spot here. Do you have any site that does a great job with some of your mods or one of your mods, and you got really impressed by what they were able to put together with some of your mods? I mean, do you have any one of those interesting cases, maybe that you have implemented yourself?
Um, it's funny whenever anyone asks this, because we have a large list of clients over the years that have done a lot of things. At the same time, there's a lot of ones that are NDAs. There's a lot of times where everything that's really amazing technology, or, really amazing work is behind the login and the pieces, and then other times where it's more security related. So yeah, is the stuff really, really cool? Yes. Because we're building modules and we're not building skins, it's not necessarily always the showcase website of, let's see how this is going. I would say though, at the same time, our modules are used very heavily in a company called Registrar, which is school registration. So anytime you're focused on probably 10 to 15 school districts throughout the U.S. So major things like that. And I don't have like a domain that I'm like, hey, go here right now. And we have a laundry list of wonderful customers, and sometimes I probably want to ask them. Sometimes I don't always want their site as the showcase piece, because it kind of opens them up if it's a we do a lot with data and back-end stuff, and it's very sensitive,
Got it. Okay, that helps. That answers. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the future now, and that's the last segment here of our conversation. 2015 seems to be a big year for DNN in general. I mean, it's the year that maybe MVC will happen. How do you see that happening? How do you see Data Springs modules more specifically adjusting to that new environment? Because I mean, at the end of the day, it might be the biggest shift that has ever happened on the platform ever. So how do you see that coming along?
I mean, with any module vendor, I think there's a lot of changes that are always occurring throughout the years. There was concerns when DNN was first going into a corporation, and then there was always constant concerns. My biggest growing concern has been probably market share with other competitions of plugins, and I think also in terms of are they going to consistently keep the community edition up to date. I think that they've done a really pretty good job attempting to do this. I think at the same time they're running their own business. This is their own. They've got to focus on their sales and whatever other growth or expenses, right? I mean, I'm sure that DNN would probably love to have more community-ish events and all of the conferences, and I think that because of cost and who knows what with I don't know the specifics, but I think that's something that it's not like I can. It's difficult because module developers sometimes want to say, oh well, DNN Corp they could be doing, or they're not doing, they're updating community enough, or they're not doing this over here enough. And really, it's like, we're building on top of them, and so we kind of have to, it's concerning when they change things up. But at the end of the day, our customers have been around for many, many years. They're looking for solutions and not necessarily just products. And so it is very possible that these solutions and plugins in the past, it's possible we move more into WordPress, or we move more into DNN, depending on how they, how well of a purpose and reason to it. I mean, we didn't build Data Springs with the intention of only having DNN like focused, and I think it's been a really good, and it really is great, and we love our customers, but at the same time we want to be open to other platforms and not just paint ourselves in a corner when it comes to offering solutions. So we'll still be updating and building modules, and we'll also probably more consistently be a larger role in conversions to and from DNN, and implementations, and any form of, I guess, knowledge base where we can start to combine other platforms and CMSs to make sure we have our own niche and help our customers.
So throughout the conversation, you mentioned a few clues on the question that I'm about to ask. So what's exciting? What's next for Data Springs? I mean, what is it that keeps you awake at night? And again, you don't need to go into all the details of that, but what keeps you awake at night, thinking of what's next for Data Springs, for yourself, and from a technological point of view, from a business point of view, what's next?
Well, personally, I don't know if it would be marketed under Data Springs or not yet, but personally, my passions have been more related into apps and other, we come from a CMS background, so we like to use CMS as a hub for data. At the same time, we know the power we can use and leverage it with all of the other extensions that are out there nowadays. So I'm interested in the Apple Watch and apps that plug in through web services. If the data has to be on the CMS, then connecting that. I like and getting that to be the fastest that you can. That's a really big deal. We're so used to performances on desktop computers in the past where you'd pull the whole data table of 10,000 records, and then you'd filter 10 at a time. Well, now it's not just something you can do with mobile, right? You're just getting little. How much smaller and how much more efficient can you make that connection? So that is a passion. I think drones are a big passion of mine. So I've been traveling quite a bit, and I take my drone everywhere. It's kind of I love it because I know that there's going to be so many laws around it, and so I love being able to use it quite freely at the current time. So, again, I don't know how those will integrate into the Data Springs, but we're constantly looking, and it will probably be what can our pieces with extensions and components and software and code help those other areas that are already our interests, and right now, for me, that's been drones and stocks.
Okay. So let's see what will come up next. I'll be on the lookout. Okay, we're coming to a close here, Chad. I mean, thank you very much for all the information, all the the openness that you have demonstrated here. Any closing words? Any closing plugs? Any promos that you want to push forward? Anything else? Is your last words here?
A couple of things, I guess, because it's big in the community. I think I want to, give a big shout out to Tony Valenti and Power DNN and what they did with the cell. I think you saw. I don't know if you saw that.
Which one?
That managed.com sold and are very, very, and I've always respected them and Tony and his management and the growth and the risks he took, and I think it really paid off, and I think he's really has a very, very solid reputation. He's going out of the D&N community with a very, very solid reputation. And I think, and it's a big year and a big time with Sean Walker has left now. So there's definitely a shift. We'll definitely be here through that shift. At the same time, I'm in hopes that D&N can find a way to engage and build a younger community of new developers, because yeah, we love our community. We love the people we go to conferences with. We love integrating our products together. We love the relationships we built, but I don't know that I see a new younger generation within our own community that's coming up, and that's probably my largest concern. And something I would like to, propose to the community out there, like what is it that we can do that would change that a bit?
No, that's a great point. Actually, I've never thought about that, but again, now that you raised the question, I mean, it's interesting. That might be the headlines of this video. What's next for
Yeah,
DNN?
no, well, it's quite important for any vendor that's on top of Data Springs, but even as a community, we're passionate. That's why that's why we're in this business, and that's why we've kind of been working with DNN for so long, right? We're quite passionate, and I think it's a very solid product, right? So it's kind of like, how do we now how do we assist, instead of being the vendor that's like, oh, well, DNN's changing over here, and Sean's gone, and what about this, and I don't know, WordPress plugins are so this, or these plugins, or or maybe I don't need. Um, Instead of asking for, I think just DNN Corp to change or help, I think the community has its own responsibility, certainly, to help drive, because it was a passion for us back then, So why did it, or when did it stop, or is it still quite a passion for us? And how can we help others to be part of our hobby too? Because it's also, besides just work, it's a passion.
Now you raise the question, so let's see what else we can raise here. So what do you? Because I mean, I guess that you formed this notion a while ago. So you may have thoughts about how you could engage a newer generation, how you can engage maybe people from colleges, from universities. Do you have any thoughts on that type of, which type of direction, which type of action could be taken towards that?
Sure. I mean, I think something happened in the past, I feel like, with DNN where and I think this happens with a lot of companies, especially in software. If you get on the defense and you get on the following side of something, if you're constantly trying to sign on to the new name phrase of the year, right? I would call it the bling bling of 2005, right? If you're constantly in this, oh, now we have jQuery, oh, now we have this, or now we have Azure, now we have social, right? I think that there's been a lot of work that's went into things like social, and I don't necessarily know that the whole community as a whole sign on. I think that they realized, oh, we have to do something social, so they went that. Oh, we have to be mobile, so we're mobile. So in my opinion, it's went from being it's put them on the defense for what the software is meant to be, because now they're playing catch up a lot, in my opinion. And what I think could be done on a community basis or as vendors is we can stop trying to be everything and remembering the power of a CMS is holding this hub of data. Before cloud, DNN, the CMS is the cloud. It doesn't matter where it's at, but the CMS is the hub. you can push and pull everything from the CMS, so you can then market it and use it as the fastest hub for mobile integration. You can now use it as the fastest hub because this data has to be somewhere, and you want an easily manageable system, right? And so if you can do that, and you can build, and vendors can build Apple Watch products that can talk to it, iPads, iPhones, workflow that really, really is talking, you know, to the CMS, and then market and advertise that, I think that we'll start to get more developers that are in a larger market share of customers don't even necessarily want websites now. You know, they need to have lots of other things when they're mobile and other types of technology. And you can't really blame DNN on this. This is just it's a major part of even .NET development too, right? If you go to Google Trends website and you type in DNN and you see the trend, it's a little concerning, but at the same time, if you type in ASP.NET, it's the same trend, right? So it's kind of like, and we have to remember DNN's, we build our components on DNN, but DNN builds their components on .NET, you know? So I think we have to look at it at a larger picture of where is .NET language even going, and how can we showcase the integrations with real-life apps that people care about. So as a community, I guess it would be, the challenge would be who can come up with the most efficient extensions that aren't even modules, just tying into the existing data and all of this content. So that would be a good challenge, I think.
Good. That's a lot of thought there. You know, yeah, you got me thinking as well. You know. In any case, Chad, thank you very much for the time, and it was great, you know, touching base with you again after a few years. Here and there, I see you in conference, but I don't see you that much anymore. I hope that I'll see you more in the future. But again, I have been always, and again, that's without a doubt, your module set has been the one that I have used most throughout my entire life with DNN, which is about 8 years now, 8-9 years now. So again, your module set has been the one for me, not only for me, for my clients as well. And I mean, I always had a great experience with you, with the people behind your organization. Kenneth back then, but now you have Ryan, and I think that Kenneth is not there anymore. But again, I just have great things to talk about Data Springs, and whenever I need something, I know that I can get a hold of you, get a hold of somebody there that will be able to help. Again, just kudos to you, kudos to your organization, and thank you very much for your time here.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it, Aderson. Bye.